We had a lot of lead up just to get to Daniel, just to talk about this new kind of literature that we're encountering. So what is going on in the book of Daniel? Well, there are a couple of different things. You'll remember that I used that analogy that if you're in a modern setting and you want to talk about NFL protests, you may say, well, it's not actually me, rather, it's Martin Luther King Jr. speaking in the 1960s, the early 1960s, about these things, right? So what we're going to see with Daniel is that there is a person who is writing, writing during the reign of this very evil Greek king named Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, if you've been paying attention, as far as we've gotten on our timeline is to say that the Persians are in control. The Persians stay in control of the land of Canaan, of Israel's new, reconstituted land, for a long time, for a couple hundred years. But in, let's see here, annotate. But in 333, so remember that the Persians were in control from 539 to 333. And in 333, we are going to have Alexander the Great, the Greek guy, come in and take over. And so remember, this is going to be troubling for the people of God because they continue to hope for a king in the line of David. They want that bottom part of the sandwich to be back on track, but they never quite get that. And from 539 until 333, we've got the Persians in control, and then in 333, we get the Greeks in control. Now, in 175, a new Greek king comes and rules over Judea. That's the new name of this newly constituted in the land of Canaan group. Comes and rules over the Jews in Judea, and he is super evil, and his reign begins in 175. His name is Antiochus Epiphanes, and he does some really horrifying things. He is going to persecute the Jews by outlawing circumcision. This is a big thing for them. This is their mark of the covenant with Yahweh that was instituted under Abraham. He's going to make it illegal to own a Torah scroll. And remember, that's their law. That's the way that they know how to live now that they're back in the land. He's going to make Jews eat pork, which is unclean, and you're not supposed to eat it, if you remember from Leviticus. And he's going to force worship of Zeus. And because these Jews irritate him so much, he wants them just to become good Greeks. He's going to go into the temple and defile the temple by sacrificing a pig there. This guy is just the worst. He is just terrible. And this is a time of really serious persecution for the people of God. And so you can imagine that during this time period, you would have apocalypses come about because the people are persecuted so much, they're longing for God to intervene and to set things right. Your grandma may even say during this time period, I can't imagine how things could get any worse. This has to be the end of the world. And so what we have arising during this time period is the book of Daniel. Now, if you read the book of Daniel, you find out that Daniel is, the character of Daniel, is somebody who went into exile in the 500s BC. But I just told you that the book of Daniel was actually written in the 100s BC. And so that's a little bit confusing, right? What the author has done is looked back in history and said, okay, I'm going to write as if I am this person from the 500s, rather than someone living during the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes. And then you'll notice that we are all the way over here in the 100s rather than back in the 500s. But this is what the author has done. The author is writing this apocalypse as if they are somebody living in the 500s and that they have seen the future and they see that this terrible thing is going to happen. So one of the things that you need to know about shortly after Antiochus Epiphanes is that Antiochus Epiphanes is so terrible, and the Maccabees, this ragtag Jewish group of conservative Jews, arise and they drive out Antiochus Epiphanes and they start Jewish rule for the first time in Judea. And you and I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for that bottom part of the sandwich to get back into focus, right? The bottom part of the covenant sandwich with David. And so a lot of people look at this revolution, or looked at it at the time, as the Maccabees bringing about that last part of the sandwich. They're not in the line of David, but at least they're Jewish, right? And so this is a really cool thing for the people of God. However, they only rule for about 100 years. And then, sadly, the Romans come in. And so by the time we get to the New Testament, the Romans are in control. We have no king in the line of David. And Jesus comes on the scene and is going to say, I'm the one. I'm the king in the line of David that you've been looking for. But he's a very unusual kind of king. Not necessarily what they're looking for at all, because his throne is a cross. Anyway, getting a little out of sync there. What I'm going to have you do now is look at Daniel 1 through 6. I'm going to assign different stories to you. And these are all stories about being a good Jew under foreign rule. What does it mean to be a good Jew when you're ruled by the Babylonians or the Persians, or in this case, it's kind of winking and being like, we know it's the Greeks. The Greeks are the ones that are in control. Antiochus is in control, and things are really bad for us, but we need to keep being good Jews. And these are all really excellent stories. So I'm going to have you look into those, and then we'll reconvene with a couple of last thoughts on Daniel.